This episode is brought to you by ProMensal.
What you want to be doing is avoiding soap, so anything that raises the pH, so a soap-free cleanser. And I wouldn't even do a foaming soap-free cleanser. I would do a gentle scent-free cleanser. Make sure that you are using a sunscreen every single day and avoiding the sun when you can.
Welcome to Thriving in Menopause, brought to you by Prevention Magazine. I'm Zoe Mernier, the editor of Prevention. Thank you for joining me for episode 5 of season 8. Today on the podcast, we're going to be talking about a perimenopause symptom that can be incredibly aggravating for those experiencing it, and that is itchy, dry skin. Like most menopause symptoms, this can be something that is very different for everyone, and it can manifest in all sorts of ways. So to scratch under the surface of what's going on, we're joined by one of our favourite podcast guests, the wonderful Dr. Ginni Mansberg, a GP and menopause specialist. Dr. Ginni, thank you so much for joining us today.
Zoe, thank you so much for having me back.
Okay, so itchy skin. I mean, when you say it, it doesn't sound like the worst menopause symptom in the world, but for those suffering from it, I mean, it can drive you to distraction, right?
Absolutely. Like where it keeps you up at night and you can't sleep because your itchy skin is driving you absolutely crazy. Or whether you just get out of the shower and you are in a hurry and you need to put on your deodorant and get dressed and go for the day, but you just can't stop scratching yourself. Or whether you end up with like a little actual like lacerations on your skin because you've broken the skin, you have not even realized how much you're itching yourself. It's extremely annoying. Like, let's not dismiss that. And at its extreme, we actually have this condition called formication, which feels like there are bugs crawling under your skin, which I have not experienced. But it just does not sound like a whole lot of fun.
I know. I mean, what is that? Is that something different to the other itchy skin that other people experience?
Okay, I'm not going to lie. A lot of this is in conjecture and a lot of it we don't know for sure. So I can put together what we think we know, which is that part of it is a disruption to the skin itself, particularly the skin barrier. And the skin barrier is designed to keep good stuff, mostly water, inside your skin, and bad stuff, mostly bugs and toxins and chemicals that would be not great for your body, outside your skin. Now, we know that estrogen is fabulous for building a skin barrier in lots of different ways. It encourages ceramides into the skin barrier matrix. So if you think what a skin barrier is it's a whole lot of dead skin cells surrounded by like this goopy kind of stuff that we call the skin matrix. And you can think of it like a brick and mortar structure. So ceramides are really, really important for that matrix, for that mortar part of the skin barrier. On top of that, estrogen helps build hyaluronic acid into your skin, which keeps that mortar nice and supple and moisturized, which is fantastic. It also helps you with your skin pH and making sure that it's lower. So a lot of people really want to have alkali everything, which I do get. There's a very big trend on alkaline water and alkaline this and alkaline that, but your skin is really acidic. And if you become too alkaline, you encourage the growth of really nasty bacteria and other bugs. And that also disrupts the skin barrier. We know once you pass into menopause, your skin remains acidic, but only just. Whereas when you're much younger and before you go into menopause, your skin is much more acidic. So the skin barrier is really driven a lot by estrogen. When you lose your estrogen, about 70% of people will experience some variation on a theme. So it's going to be dryness, it's going to be itch, or it's going to be sensitivity. So you feel like you react to every product. You could always use this foundation, now you can't anymore. So that's going to happen to 70% of women. The other component of your itch and your formication is a disruption of the nerves that sit inside the skin and make you overly sensitive. So the tiniest wing of a butterfly can make you feel like you're being scratched by a claw.
When we're talking about generalized itching, which parts of the body are generally affected by that?
So number one is actually the vulva, which is really embarrassing because it's not the sort of place you can scratch, in front of people. That actually just doesn't go down that well, particularly in a workplace or at a dinner party, for example. Just maybe refrain if you can. So you end up doing this kind of really weird dance thing, trying to sort of itch down there, but it can be anything from around your bottom, so perianal itching, your legs, your face, and it's your arms. Anywhere where there's dry skin, you will tend to be itchier. So what we're trying to do when we start to manage this is to actually repair your skin barrier. That's the first port of call for me when I'm looking at a menopausal woman, or a perimenopausal woman, no matter what is going on for her in terms of her skin, my first step is always to assess her skin barrier to find out how impaired it is, and actually then to go and rebuild her skin barrier. First cab off the rank, before we address her peri-acne, before we sort of build her collagen and get her looking youthful and try to get rid of wrinkles and things like that. Step number one is to improve that skin barrier and improve skin hydration.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's go back to the itchy vulva because I imagine that would be a different treatment. Obviously, you'd have to tread very carefully there in terms of how you would repair that skin barrier.
Absolutely. So we already talked about pH, which I don't want to traumatize anybody by retaking them back to year 9 science, but yes, we do have to go there. So if you remember, 0 is like extreme acid and 14 is extreme alkali and 7 is neutral. Except when it comes to the skin, it's actually quite acidic, sort of often below 4.5. The vulva is even more acidic. So in a premenopausal woman, the vagina itself, so inside the vagina will have a pH of 2.8. Now, how does it get to be that acidic? It's actually, acid is provided by the most amazing, beautiful array of healthy bugs that live inside your vagina, and they're mainly lactobacilli. And lactobacilli actually give you what we call that protective acid mantle. And by giving you a really acidic vagina, it actually keeps a lot of your nastier bacteria at bay. So the stinky ones, no, it's not normal to smell like a fish. That's actually an infection that comes in because you've elevated your pH too much. But even thrush, and also the vaginal mucosa, so there's a slightly different barrier inside the vagina than on the outside of the vulva. It's called a mucosa because it actually does what it says on the tin. It actually secretes mucus to help you lubricate your vagina. That really needs to be quite acidic. If that becomes too alkaline, it's not going to do its job properly, and then you're going to have a lot of pain inside the vagina. But the itch is often just the extension of that. So you're just getting much more alkaline. And the biggest culprit for that, apart from menopause, and you do lose your lactobacillus that go from 96% to about 70% in a postmenopausal vagina, what's happening, number one, is soap. So what I see with my patients is they use a bit of soap, the vulva and vagina becomes a little bit more alkaline, in come the stinky bacteria, and they're absolutely mortified. So they use more soap because they think, oh my goodness, I'm not clean. And now we've just raised the pH further because soap is extremely alkaline, like you're close to bleach, depending on what sort of stuff you're using. And so now you've ended up in a situation where you're in an itch scratch cycle. Everything's really inflamed, the whole skin barrier is impaired, and you've got a nasty infection to boot. So we really need to pare a lot of that back inside the vagina.
So what are the kind of treatments that we would be using instead then?
So the first thing that we want you to do to raise the pH is stop using soap. And when I tell my patients that, they look at me like, are you kidding me? Like, what? Like, it's going to be awful. It's going to smell. No, actually, a vagina doesn't really smell because it's a self-cleaning oven. It does an amazing job of actually allowing the bacteria to clean itself out. So we want you to get rid of your soap and just use water on, let's just call it a pink bit, can have water. You can use, I would say, a pH neutral wash. So they do have dreadful names like Femfresh and Vagisil and, just things that you just think, really, do I need to put that in my shopping basket in front of everybody at the supermarket? But yes, those kinds of things that have a reasonably low pH, sort of you're aiming for around 5.5, those things you can use on bits of your skin that once had hair or still do have hair on them. But for everything else, I'd just be doing water, and you do not need anything else. The next thing is you can use vaginal estrogen. And a lot of people are really terrified of vaginal estrogen because they think, well, it does still have a black box warning in it that tells women that if they use it, they're going to get breast cancer. That's absolute garbage. I just cannot believe that is still there. 1 year on a vaginal estrogen is the same as 1 day on a hormone replacement therapy tablet. Like, we're just talking about, it's just absolute garbage. But it does put the fear of God into women. But we even use it in women who currently right now have breast cancer with estrogen receptors on it. Commonly, that's used by all oncologists because the vagina is so, damaged by a lot of the treatments that they're on. And so we can use the vaginal estrogen, and that on its own and getting rid of your soap will often restore the pH and actually get the itch doing really well. And by the way, we'll also throw in better sex life and fewer urinary tract infections for the same price. So that's like a bit of a bargain one. And if that's not enough, we can use specific moisturizers for the vagina. it is hard to find one that is formulated according to evidence, unfortunately. And I don't want to sort of name any brand names, but you really want to make sure that hyaluronic acid is included as an ingredient because that has evidence. And the other thing that you want to make sure is that they have told you what their pH is. If they don't tell you what their pH is, assume that it's quite alkaline and don't use it.
Right.
So any vaginal moisturizer worth its salt will tell you what their pH is.
Okay.
We'll be right back after this.
Perimenopause can actually start in your 40s. Declining estrogen production during perimenopause brings on changes to menstrual cycles and often the onset of hot flushes, night sweats, mood swings, and sexual problems. Promensal Peri is specifically designed for perimenopausal women and can help relieve these common menopausal symptoms. Promensal Peri is available at leading pharmacies across Australia and offers a cost-effective treatment at under $1 a day. When things start to change, try Promensal Peri. Always read the label and follow the directions for use.
Okay, we're back.
And then back to the rest of the body. And when you said using water, is using too much hot water, can that sort of exacerbate dryness?
Zoe, you kind of really hit the nail on the head by saying exacerbate. So it's not going to cause a problem. But once you have an impaired skin barrier, it can make the symptoms worse. Plus, it activates those nerves inside the skin. So, yeah, we really don't like showers that are too hot. So we really prefer you just to be using lukewarm showers as short as possible if you can.
Yeah. Okay, and what other, obviously just a general moisturiser, would that help dry skin in general, or are there more targeted ones that people should be using?
So a moisturiser is always good. Like it's to moisturise skin, it does what it says on the tin, which is fantastic. Not all moisturisers are equal, and my preference is that you look for skin barrier building ingredients within your moisturiser, and that you look for a moisturiser that does not have an alkaline pH, because once again, you're just going to exacerbate that. And if your moisturiser doesn't tell you their pH, I would assume, feel free to write to the company and ask them to share that with you. But if they don't tell you, then I would assume that it's a bit of an alkaline situation, and I probably wouldn't be using that. So if you look for something that has a pH ideally below 6, and I'd even prefer it below 5.5 if you can. And if you look for skin barrier building ingredients, so the big three are niacinamide, which is also known as vitamin B3, panthenol, which is vitamin B5, and ceramide. So they are relatively newly discovered ingredients for skincare. We've known for a long time that they sit inside that matrix that forms part of your skin barrier. We knew that they were depleted in menopausal skin, but what we didn't realise was that you could actually add them in skincare, and that they actually would go through the skin barrier and become incorporated into your skin barrier and actually help improve that skin barrier function.
Right. Now, going back to, so I know that some people have very itchy extremities, and obviously dry skin can manifest here as well on things such as cracked heels, which can be very painful, and I guess that can be quite dangerous too if they can get infected. So what do you recommend in terms of treatment here?
So there is a condition where women after menopause actually get a build-up of very dry skin on their palms and their soles, and that does crack. And it responds reasonably well to hormone replacement therapy. Having said all of which, you do need to see a dermatologist for that. So if you are finding that you've got very thick and very flaky skin on the palms and your soles after you go through menopause, please go and see your GP, and that you might need a referral to a dermatologist. But if you've got sort of garden variety cracked heels, again, so we want you to have, particularly if you are diabetic and prone to infections and your immune system is not that great at your extremities, that is reasonably dangerous. So we do want to make sure that you are going to a podiatrist and getting good foot care to actually get that back under control, and then regularly moisturising your feet and actually making sure that it doesn't allow you never allow your feet to get to that stage again.
Yeah, and probably just going to your local pedicure place, not the way to go.
No, Yes, if you do want fungus in your toenails, feel free. But if you don't, perhaps a podiatrist would be a better way to go. That's the way I would go. It's a shame because we all want beautiful manicured toes. And, in summer in Australia, showing off a fabulous pair of orange or blue or green toenails is just wonderful, but often comes with a side effect of paronychia, which is an infection around the cuticles and a bit of nail infection to boot.
We'll be right back after this. Okay, we're back.
All right. Now, of course, our faces are another place where we can really notice the dryness and just general effects of aging. But along with our general skin face overall, you can really experience dryness around, say, the eyes and the nostrils and around the mouth. Any advice here?
Again, so what you want to be doing is avoiding soap, so anything that raises the pH, so a soap-free cleanser. And I wouldn't even do a foaming soap-free cleanser. I would do a gentle scent-free cleanser. Make sure that you are using a sunscreen every single day and avoiding the sun when you can. So like as in stay indoors between 11 and 2 if you can, or use a very wide-brimmed hat because sun is pro-inflammatory. When you do use a sunscreen, often the sunscreens that you always tolerated really well all of a sudden just give you rashes and make you itch and scratch like anything. So just go for a zinc-based sunscreen. They don't have to be slimy. There are some that are actually awesome and very matte, just as matte as a chemical sunscreen, but zinc is the least irritating of any sunscreen ingredient. And then you want to use those skin barrier building ingredients as part of your moisturizer. So niacinamide, panthenol, and ceramides, ideally inside your skincare if you can. And then you can always use what we call an occlusive at night. That's something like Vaseline. Like you can actually slather that onto the really dry areas when you go to sleep at night. Not great for your pillow, but it often does amazing things because it traps the actives that you've just put on your skin into the skin and you can marinate in that overnight, which is good.
Yeah. Now, you actually have recently created your own skincare line. Could you tell us a bit about just how that came about?
Yeah, so it was really interesting. It was actually a while ago now. In, I think, 2012, I was doing lots of segments on Sunrise about like what really works in anti-aging skincare. And I would just be talking about ingredients, which is what I normally do. I don't tend to talk about brands. I tend to talk about ingredients. And I would talk about what to look for in a vitamin C serum and what to look for in a vitamin A serum and that kind of thing. And then I'd be flooded by lots of emails saying, yeah, but what brand do I use? And I honestly, hand on heart, I couldn't find one, which is really weird because we had lots of studies. I mean, I could find the studies. You just pay, $50 and you download the study and you can see exactly what the scientists had done. But I couldn't find that replicated in products that I could see in the store. Things have actually changed a little bit since then, but that was back in about 2012. And I was talking to my husband about it and we were like, if no one's doing it, let's just do it because I want this for my skin. I've always had like the worst skin ever. I had cystic acne. I've still got rosacea. I've got familial pigmentation. And I would go on TV and trowel on the makeup to try and hide what was under my skin. And then you got to get it off. So you just sort of scraping it off and you're in this vicious cycle where you put it on to cover what you just caused by taking it off the day before. So, we created it. Initially, we were just partnering with plastic surgeons and dermatologists, and that's been fantastic. And then in 2017, we're like, let's do this. Let's launch our own. So that's when we launched our own in 2017, which is now like 6 years ago. And it's been great. It's been really good. Zoe, I think, a lot of skincare brands I see get really stuck with their legacy products. So maybe they've got, people, devoted fans and they can't retire a product. But if the evidence is changing, we will change. And that's our promise to all of our Evidence Skincare customers is that we will continue to evolve with the evidence. And we've got in 2024 a few new products coming out that are just adapting to new evidence that's emerging in like the acne and the collagen building space. So we're giving some of our products some slight tweaks, adding certain things in or changing the concentration from a 0.1% to a 0.3%, for example, if the evidence is changing around that.
What's the most fascinating recent sort of emergence that you've come across?
I think to me the most exciting is the dissolving microneedles made out of hyaluronic acid. So everybody's probably heard of microneedling. It's been around for a couple of decades now, where the idea was that we would create a skin injury by using either an in-clinic kind of device, which had little needles, or there were some take-home ones where you could almost roll the needles over your skin, and they created skin injuries that allowed two things to happen. Number one, as the skin healed itself, it would cause a cascade of kind of healing chemicals to actually be activated in the skin, one of which is your fibroblasts, the cells that make collagen. So it actually stimulated collagen production, which is, I guess, the holy grail for those of us who are getting a bit older. But on top of that, the little microchannels that were created by by those needles allowed the skincare ingredients from the stuff, the goop that you're putting on your face, to get deeper inside the skin. So it had those dual things. But in clinic devices, you could often bleed afterwards. There was a little bit of downtime. You often looked absolutely terrible after you'd had it done. And we were finding that the at-home devices weren't kept clean enough. So we're getting a lot of people getting infections. But new technology allowed us to create microneedles out of hyaluronic acid, which is the stuff in filler. So the stuff in Juvederm and rest of it is actually made out of high molecular weight hyaluronic acid, which is a critical part of your skin's scaffolding. Not only that, but it holds 1,000 times its weight in water. So it's an amazing thing to have inside your skin. These days, we can actually make microneedles out of high molecular weight hyaluronic acid, which, by the way, doesn't penetrate the skin. It's too big a molecule to get inside the skin. It still feels beautiful on your skin if you put it on as part of an HA serum, but it actually can't get into the skin. Now, these things are they're a millimetre long. So they're absolutely tiny, 1 or 2 millimetres long, but they do pierce the skin. They are microneedles, but then they dissolve. And not only do they release a payload of your actives, which you actually blend into the hyaluronic acid needles, delivering that to the deeper layers of the skin, but also the HA dissolves inside your skin. So you just get this immediate plumping and smoothing effect. So we started looking at microneedles. Well, we came out with our first ones, and they were called Ageless, and they just had anti-aging actives in them. They're in like a boomerang shape to go either under or around your crow's feet, or under your eyes, or just above your eyes on your forehead level. A lot of people use them like in their jowls or between their nose and their mouth, those folds there. So, and then we came up with our spotless patches, which had salicylic acid and niacinamide, vitamin A. That was for acne and acne scarring, because they had some really good evidence. And our most recent one, actually, we put something called a tyrosinase inhibitor, as well as a whole lot of anti-pigmentation ingredients. So tyrosinase is an enzyme that is essential for creating pigment inside your skin. Now, we want pigment because it's beautiful and it also protects us from the sun. The problem is, as you get older, it's not even. It tends to clump in certain areas, and you just get what we call mottled pigmentation, or even age spots. So you get one patch of pigmentation that's often really stubborn and difficult to get rid of. So that's what our complexion correction patches are, is they're actually targeted for age spots. So they deliver your anti-pigmentation ingredients into the skin with your hyaluronic acid, with a whole raft of different anti-pigmentation ingredients in one go. And they're kind of a elliptical shape, so they're big enough to get a reasonably big spot, or sort of a patch of a couple of spots on the face.
Oh, that's so exciting, isn't it? That's about all we have time for today, but thank you, Ginni, so much for sharing your vast wealth of knowledge with us, as always. We really appreciate you coming along today and chatting to us.
Zoe, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us, everyone, as well. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, review and subscribe. And meanwhile, for more great information about living your best life at midlife, pick up a copy of Prevention Magazine. I'm Zoe Mernier. See you next time.